today for one squadron of Tornado air defense fighters to move shortly to assist with the air defense of Saudi Arabia. This squadron is already in Cyprus, and together with its necessary air transport and tanker support, will move forward to Saudi Arabia as soon as possible.
Within 24 hours, tactical communications are established in Riyadh for the British contribution to the defense of Saudi Arabia, codenamed Operation Granby. Crucial to the political credibility of the coalition now rapidly taking shape is the decision on August the 10th at the Arab League summit in Cairo, in which 12 member states, including both Egypt and Syria, vote to send military forces in support of Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, just 2 hours after their arrival at Dhahran from Cyprus on the 11th of August, RAF Tornadoes are participating in combat air patrols with the United States Air Force. And within a further 48 hours, a squadron of ground attack Jaguars with VC-10K tanker support is operational at Thumrait Air Base in Oman.
We went out there in a very uncertain situation, and we really didn't know whether we'd be going to war the next day. So most important that we had to put up that air defense guard. And of course it was backed up under the Saudi ground environment, the ground radars and everything else. But also, of course, AWACS was there 24 hours a day. I was responsible for negotiating firstly with the Americans and then with the Saudis to come up with the command and control arrangement that would stand the test, obviously, of both the lead-in to any war and, of course, war itself. And we quite clearly identified the benefits of going under American command because of our common training, common equipment and everything else. And basically it was an American show, it was American infrastructure and so on. Because it was desperately important during the stage that we didn't have an accident shooting down the Iraqi aircraft. That, of course, would precipitate the conflict. For years we've been dealing with a European enemy that operated very discreet Soviet-type aircraft. Here, we were operating against an enemy that had both French and Western and other aircraft, as well as Soviet. So we had a tremendous problem in this identification area. But happily, we didn't shoot any aircraft down.
Throughout August, the coalition forces steadily grow and take on a truly multinational character. In terms of manpower and equipment, however, it is the military might of the United States that underwrites the credibility of Operation Desert Shield. By the third week of August, American ground forces are arriving in Saudi Arabia at the rate of 1,000 per day. The build-up of coalition forces is given added momentum by continuing Iraqi intransigence. On August the 15th, Saddam Hussein sues for peace with Iran, acceding to all Iranian claims arising out of the enormously costly and inconclusive 8-year Iran-Iraq war, thus reducing his military commitment on his eastern border. Fears for the safety of Western nationals held in Kuwait and Iraq deepen as the Iraqi regime announces its human shield policy of dispersing foreigners to key military and industrial sites throughout Iraq.
But when Saddam Hussein specifically offers to trade the freedom of those citizens of many nations he holds against their will in return for concessions, there can be little doubt that whatever these innocent people are called, they are in fact hostages.
Al Jubail, with its modern port and airport facilities, already being extensively used by the US Marine Corps for the deployment of its forces to defend the Saudi border area with Kuwait, is also the favored port of entry for the 7th Armored Brigade. But did it have the capacity to accommodate a British Armored Brigade group as well as the US Marines?
The initial recce was not a tactical recce, it was an operational recce, and I and the team were out there to make certain that there was ports and airfields that were capable of taking us, and also there was the infrastructure there to look after what at that stage was likely to be 8,000 men, but of course rose later to some 12,000 men. And it was a fascinating period, because as soon as you arrived, you realized that the Americans were up and running and were there, and there there was a vast amount of equipment already in the ports and airfields, which was going to actually make our entry quite difficult. And then we had to find out whether we could feed 8,000 men, water and so on and so forth. And you must remember too, the temperatures when our soldiers were going to arrive was going to be up into the 120 degrees, and that was going to be difficult too, and how are we going to cope with that?
As the intensive training program continues in BAOR, the brigade equipment is transported to Bremerhaven, from where the first ships depart for the Gulf on September the 28th, bound for Al Jubail. The deployment of 7 Armoured Brigade effectively doubles the number of British personnel committed to the multinational force. It was appropriate, therefore, that a new post be created, that of British Forces Commander, Middle East, commanding the units of all services in the Gulf and reporting to the UK Joint Commander at High Wycombe. On October the 1st, the appointment of Lieutenant General Sir Peter de la Billière is announced.
We were intent at that stage to protect Saudi territory from any further aggression by Iraq. And therefore, when they came out, they came under command of the Marines on the East Coast, because that was, first of all, probably the area that was most threatened by the Iraqis, because their logistics were suited to the lengths of the LFC in that particular area, and because they had empathy with the Marines, which they very quickly built up, and the Marines were, in American terms at that stage, the most significant force in theatre, although later that was not to be the case. So the significance really was that we were making a major ground contribution to the defence of Saudi Arabia, and it enabled us to break in to the coalition complexities in a fairly gentle way. The other vital and most important change that was brought about was that for the first time we were involved in operations involving the Air Force, the Navy and the Army, and that of course meant that the Joint Tri-Service Headquarters had to come out, and it was therefore for that reason that I eventually came out in my appointment as British Forces Commander, Middle East.
As General de la Billière takes command and troops of 7 Brigade begin departing for the Gulf, the UN Security Council agrees Resolution 670, imposing an air embargo on Iraq. This enables further international action to be taken to deny Iraq the means to sidestep UN sanctions by importing spare parts and other strategic supplies by air. The latest in a growing list of Security Council resolutions demonstrating the resolve of the international community not to allow Iraqi aggression to succeed.
The planning in Saudi Arabia in those early days was really under Saudi overall control, but American detailed guidance, I think that would be the right way to put it. And the plans were very simple. They were to defend Saudi Arabia. There were no complexities about how we were going to carry out an attack, or not very much about combining the plans of the Navy, the Air Force and the Army at that stage, because we were waiting for an initiative from the Iraqis and not taking the initiative ourselves. So it was purely straightforward, simple, defensive operation. And this was brought about by me being involved with Norman Schwarzkopf in daily discussions and briefings. As far as the RAF was concerned, they were working, as is normal in air operations, under the central control of the Americans, who were the largest users, Air Force-wise, and their operations were coordinated by them. And as far as the Navy was concerned, at that stage, not very much changed.
We and the American Navy in the Gulf had for a long time had a close working relationship, but in no time during my tenure of office was I under any American command. We had very close liaison with the Americans, and I offered my forces to the Americans in support of various board and search operations to do with the embargo. But this was done by mutual agreement and not by any delegation of authority. And we had good relations too with the small but quite potent Gulf navies. But we were aware that other navies were on their way. The French were there almost as soon as we were. The Canadians, the Australians, the Dutch, they were all coming. And we heard rumblings that from further afield, such as Argentina, naval forces were coming as well. So getting those forces to present a cohesive and united front, outwardly at least, was very important, and was an important part of our political resolve in those early days.
In the air, Saudi and American AWACS aircraft monitor the activities of the Iraqi Air Force around the clock, while the coalition air forces mount continuous combat air patrols to counter the ever-present threat of an Iraqi airstrike.
We, of course, knew that he had a capable air force. He had some good aircraft, Soviet MiG-29s, Mirages. He didn't have a lot in that category, but nevertheless, he had a lot of other aircraft that were very capable. And we didn't know, of course, what his intentions were. Had he decided that he wished to move into Saudi Arabia, he had at his disposal an air force that would cause us considerable difficulty. I don't think it was until about the middle of September that we felt we had the level of force to cope with any contingency. At that time, though, we were watching his flying on a daily basis. He was not doing a great deal of flying. He was not doing much night flying. He was not doing a lot of large formation flying, the sort of thing you'd need to do if you were going to pose a serious threat to one of the Saudi airfields and so on. But my perception changed because as he saw the build-up of the coalition forces, he decided to change his tactics. And we did start to see an increase in night flying. We did see some aircraft moving in the sort of profiles that would indicate that they could attack Saudi airfields and so on. And I think it was right that we never underestimated the threat. I don't think any of us guessed at that stage that he wouldn't come out and fight on the day.
By mid-October, the total numbers of ships, combat aircraft, tanks and manpower committed by the coalition partners have grown very significantly. In manpower terms, the UK contribution, including the 7th Armoured Brigade Group, totals 12,000, while US forces now number in excess of 170,000.